to Kay, who's a new caller in Barnet. Good evening, Kay.
Hi there. Good evening. Thanks. It's my first time because I felt very strongly about this. There's, of course, what James Cleverly has said is a slow walk into totalitarianism. How can we be in a proper democracy and not have the right to protest? And one thing really, James, that alarms me is the way that we have a really colonial mindset here. The Palestinians have been under occupation for 47 years. Every single aspect of their life has been controlled by an occupying force that is being armed to the hilt by the UK and the US. So we don't have 25 million, but we have enough money to go send jets, fighter pilots to Israel to keep bombing when we want to cease fire. And it is such a racist thing for people to say that brown people, largely with families, wanting these people to be heard after 47 years. There's violence on both sides, okay? So you can't condemn Hamas and not condemn the indiscriminate killing. Nobody seems to care. The 30,000 innocent children and women and families have been killed. This is like, if you're European or if you look like them, then you care. What about everybody being so upset about Ukraine? Of course, be upset about Ukraine. But what about the Palestinians who've been under? This is what the protesters are trying to bring to the attention. This double standard, that if you're a person of color, then your life doesn't matter as much as a European or a white person, is something I'm really disgusted with. Because in terms of the tones that I've heard here, I've been to these protests. I've never felt intimidated. All of this is just propaganda. You ask somebody that's been actually there. The river to the sea is it's such a subjective. Don't give me this. That, this is a silencing
Careful,
mechanism.
Kay. I know it's your first time call, but that you can't say words like that on the radio at 7:42.
Okay,
so
I'm sorry. But you know what I'm saying? That is a silencing mechanism. It's a dog whistle. And the other dog whistle is, if you don't like anything, call it anti-Semite, which I totally disagree with. I have Jewish friends that are going to every
that's a very insulting thing to say to people who've been subjected to anti-Semitism, either recently or in the past, because they know it when they see it. It has existed on these marches. I just had a text from somebody saying, "I dare you, Iain, to go on one of these marches and show the Star of David." Well, they're saying that for a reason.
Well, I also know the other side of it, of Orthodox Jewish people that are going to these protests every single time, and they feel safe. So this is a really one-sided narrative. You can't just silence people by saying, yes, of course, some people, that's a subjective thing. But you can't tell me that there's no Jewish people going there and they don't want to be tarred with this brush, that they support this war and killing of innocent people. This is a really colonial, one-sided narrative. And I find it really racist.
You don't think that's exactly what you've just given, a one-sided narrative?
No, of course not. I want peace for everybody. I want peace for everybody. But you have not. What about the fact nobody seems to care that the Palestinians are under occupation in horrible conditions? They can't go. They can't leave. They have no right of return. We're worried about how much it costs. Well, have we ever thought, why are we sending weapons and why are we funding an occupying force that basically is not listening to reason right now? Why are we doing that?
Well, I could go into a lot of detail on that. We're not funding what you call an occupying force. We're not giving aid to Israel. Yes, I'm sure there are British arms manufacturers that are selling things to Israel. But if we don't sell them, somebody else will. And the Israelis have every right to defend themselves.
So do the Palestinians under 47 years of occupation.
Yeah. Well, the Palestinian, I'm sorry to break this to you, but on October the 7th, it was the attack was launched from Gaza by Hamas against Israel, and 1,200 innocent Israelis were murdered in that attack. And if you seriously think...
Of course that is tragic, but where does this come from, If you just want to present a one-sided narrative, that's horrible.
No, that's just what you've been doing.
No, I haven't been. You're just not. This is just propaganda that you're making Palestinians and their lives not matter as much as
I'm not at all.
Country.
I'm just trying to balance your one-sided view.
I don't have a one-sided view. I don't want anyone to die.
Well, I'll tell you what, Kate. I'll tell you what. Let's just leave it that the listeners can decide who's had a one-sided view and who was trying to balance it up here, shall we?